Hi, hello, I'm Jamie. I usually make art videos and I've decided to change up my content. So as a neurodivergent artist, rather than focusing on, say, process videos or tutorials, I've decided to shift over to talking about the aspects of being neurodivergent in hopes that other people may see these videos and find some of the comfort that I have found in knowing that I am not a strange horse. I'm a zebra. I have recently gone down the path of I wonder if it's autism, and I have decided it is. However, I am not seeking a formal diagnosis, and there are a few reasons for that. Number one, there are a lot of barriers as an adult to getting a formal diagnosis. So number one is that you would have to find a primary care physician that is willing to send a referral either to a psychiatrist, and then the psychiatrist would send a referral to have autism specific testing done. And autism testing requires a person who is both well versed in psychology and neurology, which is quite a big ask. In addition, insurance doesn't cover this testing as an adult. It does as a child, it will not as an adult. So you're paying out of pocket somewhere around the ballpark of $2,000 in order to get this testing, which may or may not be geared towards adults. It may be geared towards children, and it may have a very limited idea of what autism is. I recently read Devin Price's Unmasking Autism, and he certainly hits in a lot of different points that our idea of autism and the diagnostic criteria in the DSM, which is what we use to diagnose, tend to lean towards a stereotypical presentation of autism, which is often seen in young boys. Devin Price goes into a lot of detail in this. Therefore, a lot of people are not getting diagnosed when they do meet the criteria. For example, girls tend to have a little different presentation, so they are less likely to be diagnosed, and a lot of autism traits in girls are not necessarily excused like they would be in boys. There's more social pressure for a girl to behave in a socially appropriate way. So girls are underdiagnosed. People of color are underdiagnosed. People in lower social economics standing tend to be less likely to be diagnosed. So even if a boy happens to be a boy and white and male presenting, they may not be diagnosed if they have a family who is in poverty. And these are a lot of really big issues. The DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, currently 5th edition or 5th edition text revision, is very hard to get aspects changed, even though it better reflects marginalized groups. I have also read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and he talks about complex PTSD that happens often when children are subjected to abuse over time, and how those symptoms have PTSD with additional presentation. However, the DSM does not recognize complex PTSD, therefore you can't diagnose complex PTSD in a formal situation. So the DSM tends to be a little bit further behind. There's a lot of critiques of the DSM. It is important to note at this point, while I have studied counseling as a master's student, I didn't complete my degree. I can't diagnose anyone. The internet cannot diagnose anyone. Even if I had the ability to diagnose someone in person, I certainly can't diagnose someone on the internet. And with this information, also keep in mind that I am a single source, and that some of my information may be outdated. So constantly be looking for more sources and better sources. That was quite the tangent. Getting diagnosed has a lot of barriers, whether it is social economic status or the DSM not necessarily representing everything that is out there. In addition, there's a lot of stigma, and psychiatry tends to be based on the medical model, which means everything is called a disorder and mental illness in these very technical terms that carry a lot of negative association with them. That's why many people who have autism, ADHD, or another mental health diagnosis go by the term neurodivergent. It's not the idea that there's something wrong with us or that we are broken or that we are inadequate. It's the idea that our brain just has a different function. It's not less, it is different. For example, I have brown hair. That is something I have. And that doesn't mean I'm bad compared to someone with blonde hair. It just means I happen to have brown hair. Just because I have a diagnosis of bipolar ADHD and I highly suspect autism doesn't mean I'm a broken human being. My next reason for not seeking formal diagnosis is that it doesn't change my treatment plan. So that's a personal choice for me. I have a psychiatrist, they manage my medication, and right now that's going really well. I have a therapist. We talk about all sorts of things from my weekly mini crisis to currently we're working on childhood trauma, and that feels very satisfying. It's not fun to talk about trauma, but I feel like I've healed some older wounds. There is no medication. There is no medication related treatment for autism. Therapy is recommended. ABA, applied behavioral analysis theory. It's bad. It's not fun. It's made by the same person who did conversion therapy. So the autistic community rebukes you. My therapist, we've gone through DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. For a while, it was suspected that I had borderline personality disorder, but generally when I'm very, very stressed, I tend to have symptoms that resemble that. But borderline is pervasive. It is in every aspect of your life. So even now, I should be having symptoms and I don't. So that diagnosis was ruled out. In retrospect, autism gives me a different narrative of how I view everything that has happened and how I view my ability to function. I now see that over the past 10 years, I had intense autistic burnout, and that recently I've been able to do things that I find a lot of joy and satisfaction in, and I've had a lot of stress removed, and therefore my mental health symptoms have gotten better, and I've been able to live a more authentic life. Now you may be asking, Jamie, does it matter at all if you're not going to have a formal diagnosis, if it doesn't change your treatment plan? Why pursue it at all? The diagnosis of autism, the idea that I am autistic, gives me a sense of relief that I am not the ugly duckling, I'm a swan. Right? We're seeing our own personal beauty. I am not a broken child who is annoying and talks too much. I am not the Josie Grosie that no one wants to deal with at school. I'm not somehow an inherently flawed human being that doesn't seem to understand some unwritten, unspoken rule in society. I'm just autistic. And not to say that there's not challenges, but suddenly everything makes sense. It all fits into a nice box of this is why I do the things I do. If you suspect that you have a mental health diagnosis and you are seeking a formal diagnosis or not, know that while it can be frustrating and challenging, you are not broken. You are not an incomplete human being. There's not something missing. You are beautiful. You are just different. And different isn't a bad thing. Unique isn't a bad thing. Unfortunately, society is cruel and ableist, and it's rough. It's rough. But there is comfort in knowing that you're not alone. If you like this kind of video, give me a like, a comment, a subscribe. If you feel comfortable sharing your journey, do so. Just remember, it is the internet. It is public. Keep it nice in the comments, of course. I want to create a good sense of community, and I want to continue sharing my journey in discovering who I am and discovering ways to unmask. And I'll see you in the next one.